Hello everyone, welcome to the part 3 NCERT as it is a review of the metallurgy. Now those who are looking at this video, right, can also take a look at the previous two parts so that you will have the continuity. So in the first part, just to bring you up to speed, the first part video, right, we have seen the basic idea about metallurgy, and we have looked at the first stage of the extraction, which is the enriching of the ore. In the second part video, we talked about the second stage of extraction, which is reducing the metal oxide into metal. So here we talked about, if the metal is not in the oxide form, then how do we convert this into oxide form? So we have two processes, calcination and roasting. And also we talked something about the thermodynamic principles involved in the reduction of the metal oxide. So in part 3, what we are going to do is we are going to see the applications of these thermodynamic principles, particularly in case of iron. So as we mentioned, right, iron belongs to the medium category or the medium reactive metals, and copper belongs to the less reactive. So in case of iron, right, what we'll have is a coke reduction, where we will use coke as the reducing agent. In copper, we will have what we will refer to as the self reduction that is happening. So we'll see how we can achieve the self reduction. And even we'll talk about the zinc also. So zinc is also medium reactive. So this is what we are going to cover in the third part. So we'll begin with first the iron. Now the iron ore, right, after the concentration, if the ore is not in the oxide form, sulfide or carbonate, we will try to convert this into oxide form. So finally we will have the enriched oxide ore of iron. So here what we will be referring to mostly is, in the extraction setup, we will be taking the example of Fe2O3. So the oxide of iron, right, will be mixed with, you can see what are all the substances we are going to mix. We will be mixing with what? Limestone. So here limestone, we will be calling it as a flux. I will tell you why do we call it as a flux also. And we will also mix this with what? Coke. So the iron ore particles mixed with limestone and coke, finely divided, they will be fed into what we will be referring as the blast furnace from the top. So here we are going to, in our NCERT purview, right, we will be mostly talking about two kinds of furnaces. One is the blast furnace, second is the reverberative furnace. So in case of iron extraction, we will talk about the blast furnace. In case of copper extraction, right, we will be using the reverberative furnace. Now when we fed this mixture from the top of the blast furnace, so we will discuss about the blast furnace in detail. What we will see happening broadly is the iron oxide will get reduced. That is what will be happening. And if you look at the overall reaction, right, so you can see overall reaction is what? Iron oxide will get reduced to iron. Now here the point that we need to note is, while we say that we are going to be using Fe2O3, in our Ellingham diagram, right, remember, they have not given us the Fe2O3 curve. They have only given us what? FeO curve. So that is the reason why in some of the reactions that we analyze, right, you may see that they are using FeO. The reason is in the Ellingham diagram, if you want to analyze based on that, right, we can only analyze by using FeO because that is the only curve given. Frankly speaking, they should have given the other two curves also. They will be pretty close to the FeO curve, Fe2O3 or even Fe3O4 curves, right? They will be pretty close to the FeO curve. They should have given it, but yeah, they have not given it. So hence the analysis, right, we will try to do by using the FeO. Now if you look at the reaction, FeO will get reduced to what? Iron. And coke will convert itself into the oxide form, which is the carbon monoxide. So here this is not a single reaction as we have said before. What is it? It's a reaction which is the redox reaction. So the iron oxide, it gets what? Reduced, and the coke is getting into what? Its oxide form. So which is what? Oxidation. That is how it becomes what? Redox. So the overall reaction is a combination of these two reactions. Now when we talk about the thermodynamic feasibility, right, the overall delta G means what? We have to add the del G values of both these steps. Overall delta G of the reaction should become what? Negative. And only then this reduction is going to be feasible. So we can understand when this will be feasible by looking at the Ellingham diagram. So we'll just go to the Ellingham diagram. I'll show you where the iron oxide curve. So we'll just mark it. So this is the iron oxide curve. I'll just now use the black color because there is a lot of curves that are here. So this is the iron oxide curve. Okay. Now where is the curve representing coke converting into carbon monoxide? So you see, this is the one. Okay. So where is this? This curve is starting from here. Now what we can clearly understand is in the lower temperature row, the coke curve is actually above. Coke curve is not below. Remember, for a substance to be acting as a reducing agent, what is that we said? The lower curve elements can reduce the oxides of upper curve elements. This is the understanding we have got from the Ellingham diagram analysis, which means what? In the low temperature range, you can see the coke curve is actually above. So which means what? Low temperature range, coke cannot reduce iron oxide. Now here one thing we need to keep in mind is, while we are doing this analysis for FeO, the same applies for broadly. Same applies for what? Fe2O3 and Fe3O4 also. So only when there is this, you have this crossover temperature, only once you cross over that, we will see that the reduction, coke reduction can actually happen. So what is the observation? If you look at the Ellingham diagram, right, at temperature roughly around 1073 Kelvin, I mean, again, the point is in the entire metallurgy, we have to take these temperature values with a little bit of pinch of a salt, because as I have already mentioned before, some of these temperature values that they have talked about, right, they are not spoken with clarity. But we'll just go with the basic idea, okay? And hence, in examination also, right, you will not be asked particularly questions about the temperature part. So once we cross that intersection temperature, which is roughly around 1073, basically, if you cross, so where is 1073? This is here. If you cross the temperature means, we will see that the curves will become significantly separated. Remember what we said? When the gap is significantly considerable, then we will see the reduction happening with ease. Okay. So what is the thing? At temperature above 1073, right, we will see that the coke carbon monoxide line that comes below the iron oxide curve or iron curve, which means what? Above this temperature, right, we can have the coke reducing the FeO. So which means one thing that we need to observe from here is, in high temperature, coke can reduce FeO. Now here, the point that I mentioned, right, though they have not given the Fe3O4 and Fe2O3 curve, they expect us to understand it by using a similar analogy. The Fe3O4 and Fe2O3, right, they can be reduced by carbon monoxide at relatively lower temperature. How I'll explain. So for that, we'll just erase. So we are done with our understanding of the coke reduction. Now we look at how the carbon monoxide will be able to act as a reducing agent. Where is the carbon monoxide curve? Look at it. This is the carbon monoxide curve. Carbon monoxide forming its oxide. So this is the curve. Okay. Where is the here? Whatever analysis we do, let us do with the FeO curve only. And as I said, right, the Fe2O3 and Fe3O4 curves also will be closer. So where is the curve for the iron oxide? You see, this is it. So even in the low temperature, what is this? This is the low temperature. Even in the low temperature zone, right? Even in the lower temperature, what is observation? Carbon monoxide curve is below. Means what? CO can reduce oxides of iron. So accordingly, we will see when we go to the overall reactions that will happen in the blast furnace, right? In some part of the blast furnace, carbon monoxide will act as a reducing agent. Where is it going to act as a reducing agent? In the low temperature zone. In the high temperature zone, what happens? Coke will be able to act as a reducing agent. Okay, so the reason why carbon monoxide can act as a reducing agent in the low temperature is because the carbon monoxide to CO2 curve. Okay, so carbon monoxide converting itself into CO2. This curve, right, is actually lying below. Where is it? It is below the oxides of iron, even at low temperature. So this is the reason why low temperature carbon monoxide can act as a reducing agent. Okay, so now what we will do is we will just look at what are all the overall reactions that will happen inside the blast furnace. Okay, but first we will just take a look at the blast furnace as it is. Okay, so this is what is the blast furnace setup. Like I mentioned, right, from the top you will be feeding the finely divided ore particles mixed with what? Limestone and coke. They will start coming down. And from the bottom, right, we will be blasting air. So usually you will have something called as copper tires. Okay, so pipes will be there. Through that we will be blasting. That's why it is called as what? Blast furnace. You will pump the air, oxygen mixture in terms of blasts. We will divide this blast furnace entire. It will be a very long vertical column. We will divide this blast furnace broadly into 3 zones. Now in some textbooks, right, you might see this divided into 4 zones and all that. But since we wanted to follow the NCERT coverage, right, we will divide this into 3 zones, the way they talked about. The bottommost zone, where you have, you see here, what is there? There is ample air. Okay, what is going to happen? Maybe, I'll just erase this and then put it with a clear marking. So in the bottommost zone, what is it? You see here, what is it? The coke will undergo what? The coke is coming from the top. Here you have ample oxygen because oxygen is coming from the bottom, right? There will be a complete oxidation of the coke. You see here, coke will get converted into what? CO2. Complete oxidation will give us a lot of energy. That's why you see the temperature, it will be what? Very, very high. So this is what we will be calling as the combustion zone. We will refer to this as what? Combustion zone. So combustion zone will have a very high temperature. In combustion zone, what we will see also happening is the coke reduction. Remember what we said? At high temperature, coke itself can act as a reducing agent. So coke will be able to act as a reducing agent and reduce the FeO. We'll see how the FeO will come, because from the top what we are feeding Fe2O3. How the FeO will come, we will see that. Okay, but this is what happens at the combustion zone, the bottommost. Then the other 2 zones, right, we will divide them into the low temperature zone, which is at the top. This is the low temperature. This can be also called as carbon monoxide reduction zone, because there what we will see is CO will be acting as a reducing agent, because low temperature means what we said, the CO will act as a reducing agent. So you see here, Fe2O3 will get reduced to what? Fe3O4. Fe3O4 will get reduced to what? FeO. So this is how we are getting the FeO, and those FeO will start coming down. So the low temperature, what happens? CO will act as a reducing agent. So that is the reason why sometimes, right, in the blast furnace reduction of iron, we will be calling CO as the principal reducing agent. While we say coke reduction, what is the substance that will act as a principal reducing agent? It is the carbon monoxide. Now we will see where is the carbon monoxide coming from, because at the bottom we have complete combustion, CO2 is coming. As the CO2 is rising through, right, from the top what is coming? Coke is coming, right. So this is the middle zone, so to say. This is what we will be referring as the high temperature zone. But what we should keep in mind, the highest temperature will be the combustion zone. In this high temperature middle zone, right, some of the carbon dioxide will react with the coke and it will give us what? Carbon monoxide. This will be an endothermic reaction. So you can see the temperature gets reduced because it is endothermic, and thereby we are getting the carbon monoxide. So the carbon monoxide will start rising up. So the gas that are rising up now are what? CO and CO2. And the low temperature zone, that CO is what is acting as a reducing agent. In the high temperature zone, what is also happening is the calcium carbonate limestone that we added, right, it will dissociate because of heat. It will form what? Calcium oxide and CO2. Now this calcium oxide will react with the impurities like silicon dioxide. So here the calcium oxide, right, is reacting with SiO2 is an acidic oxide. So this substance which is able to react with acidic oxides, and it is forming what? Calcium silicate, which we will be referring as slag, because it will be getting formed in the molten state, which will be clearly different from the properties of the molten metal. You can see here the molten metal and the slag, right, they will form clearly separate layers. At the bottom you can see they are forming separate layers, and because of course the difference in density, we will be able to clearly remove that. So we have the exit at two different heights. One exit we will be able to get the molten metal, other exit we will be able to get what? The slag part basically. So this substance that is used to remove these acidic oxides, we will be calling it as basic flux. So remember, in the iron extraction we will use what? Basic flux. What is the flux? The actual substance used is what? Calcium carbonate. That on dissociation it is giving us what? Calcium oxide, which will combine with silica to form what? Slag. So here this can be another question. What is the slag formed in the blast furnace? What is the slag formed in the blast furnace? It is calcium silicate. And even in this the middle zone, right, what will also happen is the FeO can be reduced by CO itself. FeO can be reduced by CO itself to what? Iron. So this is how what you will see in a blast furnace is there is a counter current. The solid particles are coming down, the gases are going up, but as the solid particles are coming down, right, the temperature keeps on increasing. So somewhere we will see that this will be converting into what? The molten state, because as the temperature increasing, the solids will be converting into what? Molten state. So we can see that this is a counter current mechanism. Solid is coming from the top, gases are rising up, and we will see, like, the thing about a blast furnace is, in this blast furnace, right, the ore particles and the fuel, here what is the fuel? Coke is the fuel, because how do we get the heat? Because of the combustion of coke, right? They are mixed together and then put into the blast furnace. When we go to reverberatory furnace, right, we will see there will be difference. There we will not directly be mixing the ore and the fuel part. Only in the blast furnace the ore and fuel will be mixed together. And one more thing that will happen is near these, I said, tires, right, the blasting of the air and oxygen will happen through the tires. Near the tires we will also see that the coke will be able to reduce oxides of silicon, even phosphorus, to the corresponding metal. In fact, they will be coming along with so the iron that is formed, right, from the blast furnace, we call it as pig iron. So into it we will see that silicon, phosphorus, they will all come as a impurity. This happens at the combustion zone, near the tires, right. At the very high temperature, coke will be able to reduce oxides of silicon and phosphorus. So this is the entire set of reactions that will happen. And what we need to observe is, yes, of course, we are getting pig iron. Other than that, what are the, we can say, effluents? We have the exhaust gases. Don't think that exhaust gas will be just like that left. Exhaust gases is having what? Carbon monoxide. And this exhaust gas can be further used as a fuel, because it is having carbon monoxide means what? This can be further oxidized, which will give us energy. So the exhaust gas will not be just like that left, it can be used as a fuel. Even the slag, right, what is this calcium silicate, this can be used in the cement manufacturing industry. That can be used as a raw material for the cement manufacturing industry. So we call it as actually slag cement, like that. So the idea is, we are looking for the iron, we will get it, but other effluents or the emissions, right, from the blast furnace, it is not like we are just leaving them. We will try to use them appropriately so that we will be able to get the benefit. So this is the overall scheme of the reactions that will happen in the blast furnace. Okay, so what is it? Now we will go through the text. So the hot air is blown from the bottom of the furnace, and what is the source of the heat? The complete combustion of the coke. And as the carbon dioxide is rising through, we will see what? There will be a reaction between coke particles and CO2 to give us what? CO. That is happening in the middle zone. And CO will come to the upper part, the low temperature. So in the low temperature, what is happening? The oxides of iron, right, Fe2O3 and Fe3O4, they are getting reduced to what? FeO. We have seen that. Low temperature, what is happening? Fe2O3, Fe3O4, they are getting reduced to what? FeO. So we can see here, the low temperature is typically what? 500 to 800 Kelvin. What is happening? Fe2O3, CO reduction. Fe3O4, CO reduction. Now in the high temperature, the middle zone, right, what is happening? The coke can react with CO2 to give us what? CO. As well as here, the CO itself will be able to reduce FeO into iron. So we have seen that now. Here what is happening? Coke combining with CO2 to give us CO. This is the reason why the temperature is getting reduced in comparison to what? Combustion zone. So sometimes, right, in some textbooks, you will see that this zone is also referred as the absorption zone, because the heat is being absorbed. And we also have the decomposing of the limestone to give us what? Calcium oxide. This is reacting with what? Silica impurity to form what? Slag, calcium silicate. This will be in the molten state and it will be clearly separating out from the molten iron because of the density difference. And you can see here, just one quick observation. Where is the pig iron? Metal will be heavy, it will be formed at the bottom. Slag will be lighter, so it will be at the top. Okay, so sometimes these kind of questions also can be asked. So because this reaction is happening, right, sometimes we will refer to this zone also as the slag formation zone. And this is how you will see the nomenclature in some other textbooks. But the broad idea is what we need to be keeping. Now when you look at the iron that we are getting from the blast furnace, right, it has got impurities. Like, we have carbon, which is up to 4%. So what do we call it as? We will call it as pig iron. Along with that, we also have sulfur, phosphorus, silica, and then manganese. Now this pig iron, right, the amount of carbon can be reduced. How it can be reduced? When you take the pig iron and using iron scrap and coke. If you use iron scrap means what? It will contain oxides of iron, and coke, when you do a hot air blast, right, what happens is the iron oxide will get reduced to what? Iron. So as a result, the percentage of carbon in the iron, right, will get what? Reduced. So we take the pig iron, we process it. How do we process it? Use the scrap iron along with that, and then with coke do a hot air blast. There what we'll get the iron oxide present in the iron scrap, right, that will be converted into what? Iron. So thereby the iron amount is getting increased and overall carbon percentage will be reduced. So this is what we will be referring to as the cast iron. So cast iron will have a slightly lesser percentage of carbon. You can see it will have what? 3%. And it is extremely hard and brittle. So it will easily break down, it will be brittle, okay. But then how do we obtain the commercial form of malleable iron? So malleable iron is also called as what? Wrought iron, okay. So we will obtain the wrought iron by doing a processing using the reverberative furnace. Remember what I said, this is the second type of furnace. We will use the reverberative furnace in copper extraction also. So the difference is in reverberative furnace, right? So this is basically the furnace charge, like that we will say. What it is our, in this case we will see what is it. It is the cast iron, okay. So how do we obtain the malleable iron or the wrought iron? So we will have the cast iron, because cast iron will have impurities, right? The impurities of the cast iron will be oxidized by using a lining of hematite. So the charge is basically, charge means whatever the raw material like that we are keeping inside the reverberative furnace. What is the charge here? It is the cast iron. The furnace inside will have a lining of hematite. Hematite is what? Fe2O3. In cast iron we have impurities. What are the impurities we have? We have carbon as a major impurity. Along with that we also have the sulfur as impurity, silicon as impurity, phosphorus as impurity. All these are all impurities. So I will tell you how the reverberative furnace is different from the blast furnace. Here we have the charge, the raw material, so to say. You see the fuel and the air, actually the combustion, right, will happen separately. It will not happen along with the raw materials. In blast iron, what is happening? From the top we are dumping coke along with the ore particles. So the combustion is happening together. Here combustion happens separately. From the combustion, whatever the hot air that we will get, right, we will allow it to pass over the charge. And because of the heat from that hot air, right, we will see that inside chamber we will have the reactions happening. So inside what happens? The impurities will react with the hematite, because there are two things that will happen here. One, you see here, if the carbon impurity is reacting with hematite, right, what happens? It will form iron that will be mixing with the metal that is already there, and we will get carbon monoxide which will escape as a gas. So it will be carried along with the exhaust gases. Even sulfur also, right, will be forming what? SO2. Along with this we will also mix some limestone. If you mix some limestone, what happens? The silicon that is there, first it will get converted to SiO2. Then it will form what? Calcium silicate. Same way phosphorus also. So what we will see is that the impurities will either be blown away along with the exhaust gas in the volatile form COSO2, or they will separate out as a slag, because slag usually will have totally different physical properties from the molten metal. It will be lighter. Molten metal will be in the, so if you look at the final zones, right, in the upper layer we will have what? Slag, lighter. Lower layer we will have what? The molten metal. We will have two separate openings and we will take out slag separately and then the metal separately. And I mean, once we take out the slag, here also the slag can be used. It's not like, we will just like that leave the slag. Here also the volatile gases, right, they can be further processed and used. So every time when we talk about industrial process means we want to reuse whatever is coming to us. So this is how we will be able to get the purest commercial form, which is the wrought iron or malleable iron. This will have like, significantly low carbon content. So this is how we will be. Now the other part is the extraction of copper. So remember, what is it that we said? We said this is an example of the self reduction. So what happens in the extraction of copper? So first, before we go and discuss about it, right, let us look at thermodynamically where is the copper curve in terms of the Illingham diagram. Where is it? You can see where is it? It's sitting at the top. So the conclusion is this can be reduced by either of the reducing agents. Means what? You can reduce the copper oxide very easily by using what? CO as a reducing agent. We can use coke as a reducing agent in both ways. Coke leading to carbon monoxide as well as coke leading to carbon dioxide. All these curves are what? Much below the copper curve. So it is quite easy to reduce the oxides of copper directly by heating with coke. Why? Because both these coke to carbon monoxide, you see here, this is coke to carbon monoxide. I mean, something is cut. This is what? Coke to carbon dioxide. Both the curves are very well below the copper curve. So we can reduce copper oxide by using either of the reducing agents. But the actual process for the copper extraction will be slightly different, because we are not going to be having copper oxide. The usual ores of copper that we find will be the sulfide ores, and we will see how the actual process will occur. So as such, if you are theoretically speaking, means what? You can say you have a copper sulfide converting into what? Oxide form by using roasting. This is how we can theoretically think of. And the oxide of copper can be easily reduced by what? Coke. These are the two steps. But in the industry, right, we will not do. That is the reason what I said in the I think first video. It is not just about the chemical principles. Chemical principle wise, yes, we can do roasting. Straight away we can do what? Coke reduction. But in industry we will not do that, because what we will see is there is a possibility of reducing the cost of entire metallurgical operation, where we can remove the need of having a reducing agent. And that is the reason why we will be calling it as what? Self reduction. We will see how the self reduction happens. Okay. And I hope you remember in the part 2 video, right, we have said, there is some part of copper related information given along with the roasting. We said we will strike it off there because we will anyway discuss it here. So what happens in the actual process? First step. Okay, so this is the first step. The ore is heated in a reverberatory furnace. Remember what is a reverberatory furnace? We'll have, so this is the diagram that is given in the NCERT, which can be slightly, I would say not very convenient to comprehend. So we'll try to use this diagram, which is very easy to comprehend. So we'll have the concentrated ore. This is the charge that we call it. And the combustion happens in a separate chamber. The hot air will be blown over the ore. Now, when we are blowing the hot air, right, the charge means, the ore, concentrated ore, will be also mixed with some amount of silica. I'll tell you what is the role of the silica. So here the silica will be called as a flux. Just like in our iron extraction, what is the flux that is used there? Calcium carbonate. Here what is the flux that is used? It is the silica. What happens in this reverberatory furnace is there is a hot air that is coming which have oxygen. The copper ore, right, it will contain copper as well as the iron in the sulfide form. If you take copper pyrites, right, what is it? It is a copper iron sulfide. So it will have copper sulfide as well as iron sulfide. Now, iron is more electropositive than copper, in the sense more reactive. So the iron sulfide, right, is the one that will convert itself into the oxide form inside the river furnace. Majority. Even if some amount of copper sulfide is converted to oxide form, right, that also will react with iron sulfide displacement reaction, so that we will get what? Iron oxide. So inside the reverberatory furnace, the copper sulfide part will be as it is. Majority of the iron sulfide will be converted into what? Iron oxide. And I'll tell you what is the use of this silica. Silica use is, iron oxide is formed. The iron oxide will be reacting with the silica. So here the silica flux here, right, is reacting with, what is iron oxide? Is a basic oxide. That is the reason why we will be calling silica as acidic flux. Remember, in the iron extraction we used basic flux. In copper extraction we are using what? Acidic flux. Here what is the slag? FeSiO3, which will separate out from the, actually from the reverberatory furnace we will not get the metal. We will get what we call as copper matte. The iron oxide will be slags off. It will be forming what? Slag, which is FeSiO3, which will be clearly different from the copper matte. So copper matte is basically the copper sulfide, which is majority as it is. Nothing has happened to the copper sulfide. And some small amount of, so this is important, Fe is not now major. The amount of FeS will be small only. The copper matte is what? It is it's going to contain what? Copper sulfide and iron sulfide. Now this is the question that a lot of students will have. Why when iron is getting oxidized, why copper is not? Because iron is more electropositive, right? So iron gets converted to oxide form. Copper will be left behind as it is in the copper sulfide form. Even if small amount of copper sulfide is oxidized, right, that will be again reacting with iron sulfide to come back into the sulfide form of copper. So the first stage is what? Reverberatory furnace, we will get copper matte. Now this copper matte that we got, right, is charged into, again you see, silica lined converter. So here this converter, right, they have not given the name. Okay, so the name of the converter is Bessemer converter. What is the name of the converter? It is called as a Bessemer converter. So Bessemer converter, right, they have kind of, they are used both in the steel industry as well as the copper extraction. They have made the entire steel making process very, very energy efficient. So we will see what is the Bessemer converter and all that. So we will have a silica lining in the Bessemer converter, and we will see what happens in the Bessemer converter. So now we have the copper matte. So I'll just show you what is the Bessemer converter. So this is how we'll have the Bessemer converter. Okay, so here we'll have the charge. Charge is what? The copper matte mixed with silica. We also have some silica lining here. Now what happens inside the Bessemer converter? So when we are blasting the hot air, right, we will see that the remaining, whatever the remaining amount of FeS, right, will be converting into the oxide form. This is second stage. First stage of extraction is what? Reverberatory furnace over. We got the copper matte. Now we are dealing with the copper matte. The small amount of remaining FeS will be converting into what? Oxide. The oxide will be slag, it slags off. Now how do we check this? Because industrially, right, they will be checking it. So when you actually look at it, there will be a green color flame. Don't go with the blue color. Actually, there will be what? Green color flame. As long as the green color flame is coming out of the opening, right, What is the indication of? It is an indication that there is still the FES that is getting converted into what? FeO. Once the green color flame is stopped, it means what? All the FES is already converted into what? Oxide form. Then the process will be stopped for a moment. I mean, this is how actually in the industry it will occur. It's not like, in NCERT we are given some 4 reactions. It's not like they will all happen together. Then they will stop. Once they see the green flame stopping, right, they will stop the process. And then after allowing it for some time, then they will again start blowing the hot air. Now what happens is, the iron sulfide is not there. Now there is only what? Copper sulfide. Copper sulfide will start converting to what? Copper oxide. This will be allowed only partially. The hot air blow will be allowed only till we see the partial conversion of the copper sulfide into copper oxide. And then they will stop. They will stop the blow of air and simply start heating it. Now we have some amount of copper oxide that will react with the copper sulfide to give us what? Copper. This is the self-reduction step. See, understand how this happens in the industry. It's not like, we'll have everything happen in one go. It happens in step by step. So in the Bessemer converter, right, they are having changeover. What do we call it as in the language of industry? We'll call it as what? Changeover. The process changeover. First stage is what? Inside the Bessemer converter, stage A is what? The green flame stopping. That is an indication that all iron sulfide is converted into iron oxide. Stage A. Stage B is what? Allow for the partial conversion of copper sulfide into copper oxide. Stage C is, after stage B, we will stop the air blow. Then we will just heat it. Then we will achieve this self reduction. And once the self reduction is over, right, we will see the copper in the molten state, and once we take it out and then starts solidifying it, right, some amount of the SO2, because in this process Bessemer converter we have SO2 coming, right, some amount of the SO2 that will keep evolving. So once we have a solid and we are allowing the molten to solidify, we will see that some amount of SO2 will be escaping. The dissolved SO2 will start escaping, and that will give it this kind of a shape. That's what we will call it as what? Blister copper. What is the reason for the blister copper? The SO2 will evolve out of the molten copper when we are trying to solidify this. Okay, so this is what is the copper extraction, and this is the Bessemer converter. In fact, so if you look at in terms of the reality, right, how it will be, it will look like this. Next we have the extraction of zinc. Now zinc is along with iron, right, this is a medium reactive element. So in this case what we have? The coke reduction. So the reduction of zinc oxide can be done by using coke. But the thing is, when you compare this with the theoretical reduction of copper oxide, because copper oxide we can reduce it by using coke, but in the industry what we do, we will go for the self reduction because that is economically more lucrative. So if you just compare this purely on thermodynamic aspects, right, what is it? The temperature required for the reduction of zinc oxide will be higher than what is in the case of the copper. Remember, copper curve is actually sitting at the top. Means what? Even at low temperature, you can see here the coke curve. Even at low temperature, right, coke curve is lying below the copper curve. This is the coke converting into CO, right? So even at low temperature, coke can reduce copper oxide, but that is not the case in case of zinc. Look at it. Where is the zinc curve? Zinc is actually this one, right? Zinc curve is here. So you have a crossover temperature. So only after the temperature, the coke line is going below. Means what? this will come to around 800 degrees Celsius, more than that. I mean, no, that's the reason why I said, let's not really, we should trust these numbers on temperature, but there are some discrepancies in terms of what is the values given in the NCERT. So the reduction of zinc oxide by using coke, right, will only happen at a higher temperature than what we see in the case of copper. And above this, it has to be above the crossover temperature. So how do we achieve this? We will make briquettes with zinc oxide, coke and clay. We will make briquettes and then we will heat it. The thing is, generally, right, this heat treatment for the reduction is what we will be referring as smelting. Now when you see the word smelting somewhere, this is a word that is used often in case of iron and zinc. Don't think it is something else. What is smelting? The reduction process that is using heat. Okay. In case of iron, because here if you heat it to higher value temperature, in case of iron we have seen blast furnace, the temperature goes all the way up to what? 2200 Kelvin. But the thing is, you can still have the metal in the molten state, but that is not the case of zinc. Zinc boiling point itself is 920 degrees Celsius. We cannot have temperatures more than that. That is the reason why it will be very sensitive, because if the temperature is going above 920 means what happens? The zinc will be vaporizing and it will be moving along with these whatever the exhaust gases, right? So the CO is also going to come as a gas. It will go along with the gases. So we have to make sure that we don't cross that boiling point temperature. And once we get the metal, so here they've even mentioned about the purification step. Once we get the metal, right, so we can use the distillation method for the purification of zinc. Like we can vaporize it, and then if you allow it to cool rapidly, right, we will be getting zinc dust, which will be a pure form of zinc. And if we allow it to cool it gradually, means we will get what? Zinc in the liquid state. So that is a purification step also. So this is the extraction of the zinc. Now when we look at the questions, okay, so these are some of the other in-text questions. Cr2O3 chromium oxide is reacting with aluminum to give us what? Al2O3 and chromium. What is this? Aluminum is acting as a reducing agent. This is what we call as the thermite process. Powdered aluminum will act as a reducing agent. Look at the del G. What is the del G naught value? Minus 421. Is thermodynamically feasible as apparent from the Gibbs energy value. Correct only. Negative, right? But why does it not take place at the room temperature? So remember one thing. A del G negative means what? Spontaneous. Yes. That way combustion is also what? Spontaneous. Means you have some kerosene. You just keep it outside. It can undergo combustion in air, right? That does not mean that the kerosene will start automatically burning on its own, because we will be requiring some ignition, isn't it? So what does the ignition do? It will provide the activation energy, because for the reaction to start, right, we require to give the activation energy. Only then the reaction will start. The spontaneity condition, right, has got nothing to do with the activation energy. So for the reaction to begin, we will require the molecules to have some minimum energy level. That is what we will be referring as what? Activation energy. So unless the activation energy is met, we will not see the reaction happening. And that's the reason why in case of combustion, what we do? We will be doing the ignition. Okay. Look at the next one, 6.4. Is it true that under certain conditions, magnesium can reduce SiO2 and Si can reduce magnesium oxide? See, we know based on the Ellingham diagram, right, the magnesium curve actually is the one that is very below. The SiO2 curve, right, will have a crossover. Okay, so it will have a crossover. Crossover means what? Till that temperature, one curve will be below, and after the temperature, another curve will be coming below. Okay, the crossover temperature will be somewhere around 1966 Kelvin. Means what? This is the temperature. Below the temperature, what is the curve that is lying low? Magnesium curve. Means what? Below the temperature, magnesium can reduce SiO2. Above the temperature, you see, this is the SiO2 curve. That is below. Means what? Above the temperature, Si can reduce magnesium oxide. I mean, this is little bit beyond the scope of the Ellingham diagram that is given in NCERT, because look at the NCERT, there is no mention about SiO2 curve. That is not being mentioned. Okay, but the idea is what? Whenever you have the crossover, means what? Below the crossover temperature, we can have one element acting as a reducing agent. Above the crossover, we can have the other element acting as a reducing agent. Like what we have seen in the case of this classic example, magnesium aluminum. This is the crossover temperature. Below the crossover, magnesium can act as reducing agent. Above the temperature, aluminum can reduce magnesium oxide, like that. Okay. So this is about the part 3 video, and we will see in the next part, 4th part.